Okay, this is Audrey Bodine. He was born in 1906, passed away and had a stroke in his dark room in 1970 and passed away that afternoon. You might say he died with his boots on. He was born in Baltimore. The family moved out to Howard County, Elkridge, when he was about 5. Um, it was interesting. His father, they cleared the land. They hired someone to put in the foundation, and my grandfather built the house, which I find to be absolutely amazing. But then I built a house too, so maybe that runs in the family. Anyway, the family was poor. He quit school at 14. He went 1 year to St. Paul's School in Baltimore, and they didn't have tuition for the second year. So he said, if I can't go to St. Paul's, I'm going to leave school. And he did. And he got a job at the Sun papers. And this was very fortuitous. He could have been sent to the press room. He probably would have run presses for his career at the Sun papers, but he was a messenger, which is to say a gopher, running items from one department to another department, running ads that were, most of the ads in the Sun papers in the 20s were drawings, and he would run the drawing over to the customer and so forth. Anyway, he was physically located by the commercial art department, which was also near where the photographers were, where the dark room was. And this is important because in the 20s, people did not have dark rooms. Photography was really a very nascent art form, industry, what have you. But here he was at 14, 15 years old. He had access to the best equipment, I would imagine, was probably available at the time, because Baltimore Sun was one of the world's major newspapers back.
State of the art.
It was state of the art back in the day. And I don't know if you all have read any Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote a book called Outliers, and he said there are 3 components to what makes somebody really great, what makes him or her an outlier in what they do. And he said 10,000 hours, luck, and God-given talent. Well, Bodine got his 10,000 hours, I think, probably by the time he was 20, working in that department, in the commercial department area, where the photographers would come in with their film, and he said, I'll take care of that. So he started running prints, I think, probably when he was about 15. And they were not, nobody was interested in photography as an art form, and he was. So anyway, he had darkroom time, and for the 50 years that he did photography for the Sun papers, he did it all down at the Sun, because we never had a dark room in our house. Okay, let's go to next. We'll talk about the pictures. Okay, this is Bodine. He was a feature photographer. He never shot news. And this is an interesting piece of his history. It's not quite related to being in a cave, but it is, in that he took the job of the feature photographer, the only feature photographer at the Sunday Sun, because that photographer had faked a picture. Now, you all are aware that Bodine did a lot of double printing, and so he changed his pictures a lot, and there was no Photoshop at that time. So he would take multiple negatives and press them together and make a print. He could change the time of day in, let's say, a landscape picture. But anyway, as a feature photographer, he was all over the state doing all kinds of pictures. Most photographers have kind of a specialty. Bodine did not have a specialty. He did it all. And the man just spent 6 hours in a like several miles into an unexplored cave. That was the genesis of this picture. And if you look at his the tripod, it was maple. It was heavy because I carried it, and not for this shot, but I did have the experience of carrying his stuff. And you've got the big bellows photo camera there, which probably was a Speed Graphic, which probably was owned by the Sun. He owned a Linhof, but I don't think he took the Linhof on the really dangerous stuff where he could possibly lose the camera or wreck the camera. I think he used the Sun paper stuff for that. Okay, next. Okay. This was Seneca Rocks. This was taken in 1942. Um, if you, well, you can't see quite how the soldiers are dressed, but they were in 42, they were getting prepared for landing in when we were in the war. They were going to be landing in Anzio in Italy. So they were training their troops to be able to climb the rocks, and Seneca Rocks was where they did the training, and he got sent out to photograph it. I mean, this is a city boy. This is not what he's used to doing. You can see how he's dressed up. These guys have helmets, they have uniforms. You know, I'm sure they had proper boots. He had on tennis shoes, and he was just tied up at the waist, hauling. I don't know, somebody else had his camera, but he was hauling a lighter tripod. Next. Okay. I don't know, you know, he had to be someplace as precarious as this from where he took that picture. But this was a very good example of that, of Bodine putting in clouds. This would have been a multiple print. He was a pictorialist, and the essentials of pictorialism is it's it's a piece of art, and if I want to add, I add. If I want to take out, I take out. Okay, next. And there he is in the dark room. Now, his fingernails were dark brown, and they always were. I never knew him to not have dark brown fingernails. And I had seen a picture of his dark room with a little tiny camera in it. And I had asked his boss, when I was looking at this, who wrote one of his biographies, was that the ventilation that he had? And he said, yeah, I think pretty much so. Yeah. And I know that he used, when he was making his prints, he did not use tongs, because I have been retouching prints to repair damaged ones, and you know, they're old, so I do have some damaged pictures. Anyway, it was very clear to me that the man did not use tongs. Because I've got all those fingerprints. Next. Uh, this was a picture that he took. He called that the hell with it. And he was one of his favorite pictures. In fact, he had a little print of this hung up in his darkroom, I think, to remind him, if you're going to do the job, do it right. Next. Uh, People ask you what it was like to be his daughter and be used in his pictures. Well, here was a very good example of what it was like. This is the Mason-Dixon marker. It was around Hagerstown. The reason I remember that is because we went up to, he liked to do things in bulk. If you're going to do one thing, if you got a couple of things to do in one place, we'll do it. So he was giving a lecture to the Hagerstown, or the Washington County Women's Club. And while he was there, he was going to take a picture of the Mason-Dixon marker, because the Sun was going to run a story on the different Mason-Dixon markers. You know, good and well enough. So we are driving up there. Now, he smoked a pipe. My mother smoked cigarettes, and I'm prone to car sickness. So on the way up from Baltimore to Hagerstown, I barfed all over my mother. And lucky her, she had a good friend who lived in Hagerstown, so she was able to change clothes, except that this woman was about 5 inches shorter than my mother and about 6 dress sizes smaller. So my mother kind of looked like a $4 hooker when they went into the women's club. Not to be outdone by that, he he had neglected to zip up his fly. Mother was trying to tell him, do something, and he was not hearing it. So having made that splash, we went out to take the picture of this monument. And I'm 4 in this picture. They plopped me down by the monument, and I remember as a little kid, there were ants all over my legs. I remember that. And sure enough, when I retouched the picture, my legs were in fact covered with ants. Now, I had ants, and the flowers had not been dethorned. I mean, it was a trifecta of fun. So I'm about to peel off and I howl and cry. Anyway, yeah, next. Okay, this was fishing dories. He took this, I think, one of his earliest pictures that he did as a piece of art. The Sun Papers was located on Baltimore Street, downtown, right, you know, 2 blocks north of the harbor. And he would wander around with the camera and just take pictures of what was going on on the harbor. And he said later on in life, he never felt that he took a picture that was better than this. I'll leave it up to you. Next. Okay, this also is a picture of me. This is no family drama on this one. But the people were commenting that, well, the reason the Bodine's pictures are so good is he has such great equipment. And this he took great umbrage at. So he went out and got a $1 brownie box camera and took a bunch of pictures that were published. And this is what I could do with a $1 brownie box camera. He was very proud of that. Next. The Jolly Fisherman, not actually not so jolly. This waterman took my father and Ralph Reppert, who was a reporter on the Sun. They were good friends. They were very compatible. They were funny people. He was a funny fellow. Ralph Reppert was. Anyway, so they're out on the boat, and Bodine turns to Reppert and said, "Throw a bucket of water on the guy." So Reppert obediently tossed a bucket of water on the guy. And that was the picture that he got as soon as that water hit this man. The following picture, which I didn't bother to put in here, he looked like he was going to throw the two city boys back into the drink. But anyway, what the man would do for a picture. Okay, next. This was his most prominent picture, at least in his mind. This won the #1 slot in popular photography. There were 50,000 plus entries, and this took #1. Now, several important points. This picture was not in any way manipulated. This was exactly what he shot. No touching up, no double printing, no nothing. This was done during a nor'easter. Now, I'd mentioned earlier that Bodine grew up in a poor family. He didn't know how to swim. So he is on this boat. Oh, well, not on this boat, on a boat next to it, in a nor'easter, holding a large format camera. And this was the picture that he got. He won $5,000 from that popular photography contest in 1949. Next. This was popular photography. He took #2. This was in 1948. This was it was an interesting picture. It was we called it the early morning charge, and he had to set this up through the War Department. It was taken in the early 40s, with smokers and whatnot. The fire department got involved in all of it. It was not uncomplicated. He had much to say about the difficulties he had in taking photographs during the war and getting permission and clearances and so forth. Next. Just to give a sense of the motion, this was the Highland Light. His stepdaughter was dated, in fact, was engaged briefly to a fellow from the Naval Academy. And we went on some sailing expeditions with him. Again, Bodine could not swim, and he got this shot off. Next. This one I just like because he would have highlighted these. He was big, he retouched, painted, did all kinds of things with his negatives, and added highlights. Dollars to donuts, these ropes were not that white. Next. This was a very popular picture. The sailor, the fellow that's out, Bob Burgess, who's out on the end of this, was a friend of his. I was telling the group earlier, I don't have the picture, but photographers will be photographers. They were out in the Dismal Swamp, and Bodine was in keeping with his motto that there's one best place from which to take a picture. Find that spot and take the picture from there. So he waded into the swamp and started to sink, and he thought he was going down with in quicksand. And so Bob Burgess, instead of grabbing a branch and pulling him out first, he grabbed his camera, took a picture of him sinking, and then stuck the branch out to pull him back in. Next. Just I think, very typical Bodine picture. Sunrise was his favorite time. He was an early morning photographer, not so much. I mean, he did a lot of night work, largely because of where we live, because it was very picturesque, dangerous but picturesque. But what he would do would put a coin on the easel to make a sun or a moon. He would by his double printing, he was able to adjust appearance wise the time of day. Anyway, next. This was taken in Fells Point. He would have added this fence. This looks to me like it was a double print. I know that he definitely put this snow in, the white stuff down here. He did that. Next. Cover to my book. Bodine's Chesapeake Bay Country. This is another, this was while the Bay Bridge was being built. He did a number of pictures of the bridge while it was under construction. Which united the eastern shore with the western shore. The eastern shore is still complaining about the bridge. They would like to blow it up, but yeah, they're talking about putting another one in. And these clouds, I've seen these clouds before. They're kind of like old relatives. Next, another not quite the same as the fishing dories, but he liked he had certain themes that he really liked, and the oil slicks that were in the water, which is really what I'm pretty sure this is what we're looking at, are oil slicks. But very photographic, very photographic. Next. This was oh he left. Okay. Trying to think where this tree is.
Susquehanna.
Susquehanna, yeah, Susquehanna. A number of pictures of the Susquehanna, in the Havre de Grace area.
He would go back.
He'd go back.
Time,
Yeah, he would go back multiple times.
as it was changing ecologically.
Next. Boom, boom, boom. Chris Field. Again, we've got that sun, or yeah, that sun would have been added. Next. This is an example again of double printing. He had net negatives. He had cloud negatives, he had net negatives, and he would frame pictures with nets. The long, I mean, think about this guy pulling up all those oysters. I mean, you can kind of tell a story here. Next. Another picture of Chris Field. We've got lots of clouds. I mean, that's a very Bodine picture. Got people in it. People weren't really his strong suit, but he would use them for scale. Next. And this would be another, heavy weather. Next. And these guys are clam diggers. They can, these get dug up in, but with their toes. Since I've got a question here. Since he grew up in Elkridge, did he have any pictures of relay? Yes, there is a picture. I do have pictures of relay. We have, our website is database searchable. So if you type in relay, whatever relay I've got would come up. Next. Men at work. This would be bright, bright and early. He would go out. Now one of his things was do the common thing uncommonly. And there's one best place from which to, if any, you all take nothing else away from this, there's one best place from which to take that picture. Find it. Next. The Levan-J Marble. Yeah, that friend of mine, Kathy Smith, just wrote a book on the Levan-J Marble. The sinking of the Levan-J Marble, in fact, changed maritime law. In the mid-50s, this ship went down in a storm, and I think 17 people died in this. And there were no rules on what it took to be a captain for a commercial boat. Anybody could do it.
And no
Just
life saving.
no life no nothing. Anyway, they had a very inexperienced captain helming that. Well, now they have to be licensed, but the sinking of the 11J Marvel brought that about. Next. This was this is Baltimore Harbor. Yep. Baltimore Harbor and the Domino Sugar. He would have gotten out very early for that one. Very, very early. Next. And this was one of the first buildings that went in Charles, the development of Charles Center. The revival of downtown Baltimore, and I hope it keeps reviving. Next. This was where we lived. Actually, we lived right across the street from that church, and you notice these lamps. It took him over a half an hour to take this picture because he would he would close off the I guess the aperture, the lens. So you take the lens cap off, so or put it back on, so so that you wouldn't be bothered with the traffic, and instead of the lights being in a big starburst. But he loved bad weather. It was that do the common thing uncommonly. The man loved a good snowstorm. Loved it. Next. And this is Tyson Street. This was where the alley houses were. I guess you all are familiar with Baltimore. You had the long streets that had the big houses, and then you had the alleys that had the alley houses, the little tiny houses, and that's where the people that worked for the people in the big houses lived. And most of those houses were knocked down in the 50s and 60s to make parking lots for the businesses that were on Howard Street. But anyway, I used to grade the condition of the neighborhood by counting the Thunderbird bottles that were on Tyson Street, which there were usually a fair number of. Next. Washington Monument. This has been a very popular picture for us. This snow was real snow or painted?
No, that was painted.
Okay, this snow would have been painted onto the negative. Yep. Next. Palmistry. This was on Howard Street. I love to mosey around late at, after it got dark. And Palmistry. It was a funny story. My mother, before she met my father, but she was divorced from her first husband, with a girlfriend. They went into a palmistry. What the heck, we're two single women. Let's go and see what the future holds for us. So my mother's palm got read, and it said, the letter A is going to figure very largely into your life. Well, how many vowels are there? So that wasn't too big a leap. But she did meet and marry A. Audrey Bodine, go figure. But the other lady, she met at a different end. The palmist looked at her hands. I'm not going to read your hand. She just wouldn't do it. Okay. And they walked out, and the woman got hit by a car. Not killed, but it made an impression on the two of them. Next. This picture was in fact my idea, and it was also a piece of Matthew Brady, who was the Civil War photographer, who was in fact one of my father's heroes. Matthew Brady. Bodine liked to add a little Bodine touches in things, so he grabbed that bottle from probably somewhere else on the street. But this would have been a horse stable, because before we had cars, we got around on horses, and needless to say, it didn't fit. But I thought that was that kind of was a great comment on everything. But he put in those broken windows. I mean, I've got other pictures that involve hunks of glass that are not in the window panes. Next. This is the quintessential Baltimore picture, wash day. In our business, this I think is this number one? It's close to it.
So.
This is number one picture for what we sell. Now, personally, that wouldn't be something I'd want to put on my wall, but it's Baltimore, cleaning those white marble steps. Next. And this was, oh Lord, the name is eluding me now, but it's across from the Mercy Hospital. The
St. Paul
anyway,
Place.
Preston Gardens. Yes, Preston Gardens.
And that was infrared.
And infrared. And you can see by what I call the puffy trees. And this was about 6 blocks from where we lived. And he would go at Christmas Day, which would be an ideal time to go down to, because the traffic is just not there and people aren't parked all over the streets. And he liked angles. The book that I did, Bodine City, all of the pictures in that book were taken within 4 miles of our house and our home. The idea is that I was trying to present in that book was that Baltimore is really a very interesting, well-designed city full of some very interesting images and constructions. But anyway, next. And this may have been Preston Gardens as well, but you can see the shadow of the shadow here, which would have been him. Just by way of an interesting picture by way of composition. Next. And this was a picture of my mother. Bodine liked costumes, and Jones Costumers was right a block away from where we lived, so getting costumes was not an impossible thing. Well, he drove her out here. This was a crack of dawn. Now she's a night person. He's a day person or morning person. And so she's dressed up in her little costume with her basket, and they drive out, and she's saying, he's out of his mind. She looks around and she sees old sofas, washing machines. It was a dump site. But that's what he saw. What you're looking at right there is what he saw in that. And she was very surprised at how well it turned out, because it's not what it looked like driving into it. And Bodine got his images, as best I can make out, is how he got them was assignments and jobs. Those speak for themselves. And he had drive-bys where he would just stop the car and we would take the picture, because the picture would never be there again, right? So we'd stop there. And then he had the drive-by come back to. So that's why I call them drive-by come back tos, where he'd see, yeah, this is a good place to take a picture, but it's just not the right time of day, or it's not the right time of year. I'm coming back. And that's how just what he was going to do. Okay, next. This would have been a drive-by. Great lineup, very artistically done. Of course, that was the people who put them there, and he fashioned those clouds. Those were definitely they definitely came out of the Bodine files, Bodine cloud file. Next. And crooked trees. This was South Mountain in Western Maryland. That also would have been a drive-by. That has been a very, very popular image also as well. Next. And this was taken down in Virginia. He published a book, excuse me, Face of Virginia. And these were the Amish. He liked symmetry. In fact, these buggies were all lined up, and we had the corn stalks in the background.
And repeating patterns.
And repeating patterns,
This
yeah.
is an example of repeating patterns. He did one with straw hats at a manufacturing.
Next. Same kind of thing. Drive by. These were not the clouds that were there when he took this picture. Because I'd gone out with him a couple times where we'd get to a place, the clouds would not be right, and he never got out of the car. Go figure. Next. And he liked reflections, kind of a double image taken down on the shore, and no clouds here. And sometimes he didn't want clouds. Next. And this was taken down at the Monocacy River Bridge. And it was interesting that these two little figures, I'm thinking, this picture would look a lot better without them. But I read in some of his correspondence that he did put people in pictures because he wanted to give a sense of scale. So the little people stayed. Next. And this was taken down in Chrisfield, Maggie Wick's general store. They're playing checkers. Playing checkers. Next. Krebs and Natty Bow. This is our number 2 favorite picture, most popular image. Never exhibited this one. But this is so Maryland. It just right there, you know, right with from the beer kegs to the door. Although they don't have newspaper on there, they should have newspaper, not cloth. But we'll give them a pass on this. Next. Bowling. The reason I included this, maybe perhaps not high art, but where was he when he took this picture? I mean, was he belly down on the floor? I don't know. I mean, but anyway, that fascinates me for that reason alone. Next. The dancer. One of the fun things about doing presentations is I run into people who have firsthand family experience with the pictures or the personality, and met a fellow who was the son of this woman here, and she was a beautiful dancer, and she gave up dancing to be a mother. But when he took this picture, he had routed these dancers. There were other dancers in this in other parts, other shoot. But anyway, he rousted these dancers out. They had to be out by sunrise. So they're out there, and he had her leaping and leaping and leaping. And finally she said, "Buddy, you got one more leap. I'm done." And that was the leap. Beautiful picture. And now the clouds would definitely have been a Bodine addition. Next. I just found that to be fascinating.
Art Deco.
Art Deco, yeah. But this gives you a sense of the variety of what this man did. Next. More dancers, and definitely Bodine clouds, and doing the silhouette. Next. Ocean City. We love Ocean City. We do love Ocean City. It's funny, we took a number of trips as that was the only place that we went on vacation, with the exception of going to where his stepdaughter was living, and we would go visit there. But anyway, we go down to Ocean City, and I have absolutely no memory of my father when we were in Ocean City. He would leave first thing in the morning, and he'd come back at night. He would go off and take pictures. God knows what he did. God wouldn't tell us either. But these pictures, some of the pictures that are in the collection, I would imagine, came from our trips to Ocean City when he just wandered away. Next.
Jennifer, I had a question about this
Yeah.
image. How in the world did he get this shot? Where was he?
I'm probably the Ocean City Pier. The Plimhimmon was like 2nd Street, I think.
Okay.
So he would have, because there was an Ocean City Pier. I don't know if it survived the '63 storm. If it had, it would have been replaced.
Okay, thanks.
Next. This was, well, we have a number of hunting pictures. He spent a fair amount of time on the Eastern Shore, actually. It's interesting that I ended up living here. There was another shot. I don't know if I have this picture in this collection, but I ran into someone whose father or grandfather had been hunting when my father was taking pictures. And so they're in their duck, my father was in a duck blind somewhere, and this guy's family member was in another duck blind. And so Bodine made noise. The geese rustled. They went up. The guys in the other blind readied their guns. My father came within a second probably of having his head blown off, because they thought he was a duck. Next.
Dick Cheney moment.
Yeah, Dick Cheney moment. This is my favorite hunting picture. just like the silhouette, and it just is. I thought Bodine captured a mood. I think it was some of these pictures I feel are very, very moody, and I find that one moody. I like to think about it. Next. Like silhouettes. This is running along the Miles River. Just a young woman, teenager, and her poodle just trotting along. Next. And this hunting picture. This was taken back in the 30s. I have a fair number of fox hunting pictures. Again, these are very, very Bodine clouds. Very Bodine clouds. And capturing the movement. Next. Now this was an interesting situation. You see this horse in the background. I assumed that horse was dead, and I assumed that horse that's on its neck, literally on its neck, was probably shot at the end. I mean, that looked awful. So the woman who has written the book on the Maryland Hunt Cup, was in the audience, Margaret Worrell, and she said, no, that horse back there did not die. He got up. This horse, the one that fell like that, he didn't die. They finished the race. That horse got back up. The jockey got back on, and they finished the race. Didn't win, but didn't die. Next. And I think this is a very interesting picture. And again, out of what we would assume to be Bodine's motif of photography, high contrast. This was taken at the zoo. Took a fair number of pictures at the Baltimore Zoo, now Maryland Zoo. He was tight with the guy who Watson, who was the executive director at the time. And when he would go out to the zoo, he would take me with him. Anyway, next. And the three kittens. This was taken down in Virginia. This was just a gift of timing that all three popped their little heads out at the same time like that. Very, very cute. Also very popular on the salon circuit. Next. Fish. He did a lot of private work for Lily Pond's Fisheries in Western Maryland. He would go out there and do shoots, and they would send things to us. One time I got sent down to the Greyhound bus station, where we lived 2 blocks from the Greyhound bus terminal. And so Lily Ponds would sometimes ship him animals to shoot, and then we would send them back via the Greyhound. Very handy. So I'm walking up the street, and it says, "Caution, live alligator." I am carrying an alligator back. Yeah, it was an alligator. It was a little baby alligator. And we kept him in a bathtub, and, the fun of living with a photographer, you just never know what's going to be in your bathtub. Next. I think this is very interesting by way of texture. I have no comment other than it came from our giraffe came from the Baltimore Zoo, but I like the contrast. And he did too. Next. And this was a very popular image, also a very successful exhibition image. He did a lot of manipulation on that. He would have darkened the smoke. Now, I learned from another picture that he had taken where he darkened the smoke that someone came up to me after I was doing a lecture on this and said, "What your father did is just terrible." What would he do? He darkened that smoke because it looks like that is a very bad sea captain, because he was not doing right by the engines of his ship or boat, or it wouldn't have made all that dark smoke. So that was not good. I'm sorry. Okay, next. Now this was one of the Western Maryland Railway pictures, and I was doing this back page for the Maryland Life magazine while it was still being published. And I had to write an essay, a 150-word essay. And I tell you, writing a 150-word essay is really harder than writing a 25-page research paper. Be that as it may, I don't know anything about Western Maryland Railway. I had to look it up. So I've inherited a very nice Maryland history library from my father. So I go to the Western History of Western Mail, and I go and I'm flipping through, and I see some writing in the margin. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. He made some notes, and it was George Swearingen, elected sheriff of Washington County, tried, convicted, and hanged for murder. Oh my God. So I learned a little bit of my family history, doing some research from the Western Maryland Railway, which was inspired by this picture that I wanted to put into the magazine that month. Because, I like coming and going things. Okay, next. And Wheels of Industry. I think this is a magnificent shot. This was taken, I believe in 1950, and I believe Sparrows Point. Clouds darkening. I mean, all the Bodine touches, the highlights here. A lot of manipulation, which I guess this is the days of now that we have Photoshop, not a big deal, but back then it was one picture, one at a time, each done by hand. Okay, next. Sheet steel. He did a lot of work at Best Steel, which, my industry book or his industry book would show. But it's interesting because I don't think he would have been allowed to get this close to this kind of action, in this safer environment. Anyway, a lot of a friend of mine worked at Best Steel, and he saw a fellow worker fall into a vat and vaporized. I think they've gotten tighter about things like that now. Anyway, next. This was the cover of the industry book. Yeah, blast furnaces industry. Okay, next. And this was Bodine's answer to the Ashcan School of Art. He went out and bought a new trash can. Well, we had to replace those periodically anyway, and put that little still life together. It was quite good, actually. Next. This is a lens from a lighthouse Fresnel lens. Very interesting composition. Very, very Bodine-like, but also very different from his pictorial scenery. Next. And this is not a pen and ink drawing. This is, in fact, a high contrast. Christoph, could you flip to the next one? Because I want to compare the two. Yeah, this is the same picture, but not high contrast. As you can see, this is what it looked like. Okay, next. Some of this would date you if you remember. This is the WMAR sign station identification picture that they would throw up. Periodically, TV stations had to do a formal announcement of who they were and where they were. And anyway, that was Cubist design. Very, very popular image. Very sells well, exhibits well. Good picture. And do the common thing uncommonly. Flipped it on its side. It's like a whole different kind of picture when you see it, when it just looks like a bunch of steps. Okay, next. And this was a solar eclipse. It took 45 minutes for him to make this picture. It was taken in 1945, and it was done with infrared, because you can see with what I call the puffy trees, and you might say Baltimore's premier phallic symbol. Okay, next. And this is what Richard was alluding to earlier. This was taken at a pattern mill, out of patterns and repetitions. Okay, next. And this high contrast. These were snowy steps, which were right up the street from where we lived on Park Avenue. Next. And this was Builders Online, again, high contrast, but a different format. It's different from what is, when one thinks of Audrey Bodine, I think they mostly think of beautiful landscapes, maybe beautiful maritime scene, but he did very, very modern stuff as well. Next. And this was taking some very simple piece of architecture and making it into its own very special thing. This was the Howard Street Bridge going into North Avenue. Next. And towards the end of his life, he was doing some experimentation, and these were multiple negatives, but creating a multiple negative effect. Anyway, next. And then we have the very pensive lady in her. This was taken in the Methodist Church I believe back in the 40s. Very pastoral, gentle, human, dignified picture. Next. And this is actually one of my favorites. This was taken in the courtyard of the First Presbyterian Church across the street from where we lived. This light fixture was definitely added. This was definitely enhanced. I have no idea who this person is. I've been asked and I've tried to identify, but the legs aren't right for any of the women that were living in the house. If he had grabbed somebody he would have hauled somebody out, one of our tenants or one of us out of yes, the tenants sometimes got dragged into the life of photography. Anyway, I can't identify who this woman is, but it's, I think, a very pictorial picture. I mean, what is the story here? Because I think that one of the triggers with pictorialism is that it tells a story. What is that story? Anyway, next. And this is definitely my favorite picture. This was definitely a double print. The woman in the window is his wife, my mother. That was our kitchen on Park Avenue. And this was Willie Hoffman, who was the last gas lamp lighter in Baltimore. I think that ended in the mid 50s. And this fixture was not in our backyard. It was definitely a double print. But the way he shadowed Mr. Hoffman's face and the non-glare of the lights, well, I'd say well executed. Next. Bigger on Bigger on Howard Street. This was actually part of a series that ran in the Sun on people at work. I think it was a cheap shot, but anyway, yeah, the guy was selling pencils. Excuse me. Anyway, next. And then, yeah, this is the coffee shop down on Baltimore Street. It's somewhat unrelated, but it does trigger a funny memory, or not a memory, but what was told to me. When my mother married my father, he had a call girl living in the basement apartment. It had a separate entrance. Well, a sailor came to our house, the main part of the house, rang the doorbell, and my mother answered. And it was a sailor, and the guy asked for, is Mary Ann here? And my mother, this woman down in the basement, and my mother said, no, she is not. And the sailor said, well, you'll do. Anyway, Mary Ann left shortly thereafter. My mother had no humor for that. I personally think it's hilarious, but anyway, I'm kind of, yeah. Next. And yes, this was a house is a home. When Bodine took this picture of this woman, saw this woman, he was appalled at her living conditions. To make a long story short, he got involved. He wrote letters to the mayor and drove the guy nuts. Whatever passed for social services in the 40s is what he rattled their cage. Long story short, the family of this woman said, get that city man out of our lives. She wanted to stay there. She was happy there. It was her home. Who was he to judge, right? So that was the last time he ever got involved in social work. But anyway, he did he did spiffy up the place. He put in that little vase of flowers to make it better. Next. And this was, to me, a common thing uncommonly. This was a shoot that he had. It was on the Eastern Shore, and it was of barrel making. barrel making. And he had this guy hold this thing up and frame, like framing things. So anyway, I thought that was just a very interesting composition, a very interesting use of the materials at hand. Next. American Gothic. I mean, granted, it's not the father and daughter, but these guys actually were farmers out. They had a horse farm out in I think north of Hagerstown. They 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 raised Belgian horses, which are large horses. They can weigh in at 2,000 pounds per. Whew. Anyway, they're very good draft horses. They will haul a lot of heavy stuff. Next. And this was a potato field, and this was, I believe, in Virginia, on the eastern shore of Virginia, the potato farming. And that was also a picture that exhibited well on the international scene. Next. Contour plowing. He liked contours, shapes of things. Yeah, I think it pretty well speaks for itself. I think this is probably all now a shopping center, but progress. Next. And yeah, this this was, oxen pulling heavy loads. Oxen are great for pulling heavy loads out of very difficult spots. And it was interesting. I bet nobody else can say this, but in this group, but I have not one, two ox yokes. How many people have 2 ox yokes? Not many. Now, my parents went away on a vacation, or not a vacation. They went up to take actually pictures of clouds in Nova Scotia and left me with the babysitter. When the babysitter came back, she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but the kid does not answer to Jennifer anymore. She will only answer to Ox. What? I'm, 3, 2 or 3. And we can't call that a little kid like that Ox. They fixed it up to Oxy. But anyway, I was wondering why would that have ever even occurred to me? And then it hit me because I saw a picture. I went to the Sun Papers and got access to a lot more of Bodine's pictures than we had in the family collection. And part of it was the shoot that he had he did a shoot on a guy who made ox yokes. Okay, that's how we got the ox yokes, and that's how I must have gotten the name Ox, because I am 76 and I'm still living with Ox and Oxy. Go figure. Okay, next. These are the Ward brothers. These are the grand poobahs of decoy making. Their ducks can go for $500,000. I mean, I'm talking about these guys here. These things here, we're looking. I like that guy's looking straight at
They
us.
sold them for 25 cents.
And he sold them for 25 cents. I have a little duck. I have a little Ward duck, and I had it taken. I took it to Chesapeake appraisals. They said, we say about 5,000. Whoa, anything. Anyway, yep, these were the Ward brothers. Next. This is the creepiest picture, and I think it's hilarious. I mean, if you all have seen any of the Chucky movies, I gotta have kids to have those, I guess. Anyway, yeah, it's just very creepy. These doll heads. This is called the Doll Doctor. I don't know. I don't have any other pictures from that shoot, and I would love to see those pictures. Anyway, next. And this was Baltimore Street. This wasn't Tattoo Charlie, but I don't guess I have Tattoo Charlie in here. But yeah, Baltimore Street was only 8 blocks from where we lived. The block itself, the notorious block, which is where this was taken, was we lived 8 blocks north and 4 blocks west of the block. So it was easy to get to. Anyway, yeah. Next. And this was one of his drive-bys. He drove by and just couldn't resist. And this could have been taken yesterday, but if you look over here, this guy here, he's got Argyle socks on. And that is not a current fashion. Anyway, this has been a very popular picture. And he had a comment that it was interesting because, I mean, you can't see the frontal part. So you just see the little bare bottoms and the backs, but nothing that would be considered obscene. Okay, next. And this is kind of like that bowling picture. Where was he when he took this? I mean, was he under the kid's foot? Anyway, yeah, Bodine had a good gift of timing. He really did. Okay, next. And this is a one-room schoolhouse in Frederick County. Frederick County. Yep. But he wasn't real good. Children were not his forte, having having been his child. But I interviewed about 20 years ago a photographer, Dick Stacks, who was a colleague of his on The Sun. And I said, well, how did the boss decide who took what stories? And he said, well, I got meaning he, Dick Stacks, I got the pictures that involved children because he wasn't real good with children. I howled. Yes. Next. This is Nuremberg. He was there in he was in Germany in 1932. It was the year before Hitler took over. But he did say when he in communication with somebody that Dick Medford, when he was there, that it was very clear to him that they were arming. No more detail than that, but that Germany was getting ready to do something that we weren't ready for them to do. And he didn't have access to anything special. He was in his 20s. He had access to nothing special, wasn't anywhere where he wasn't supposed to be. He wasn't in any military areas, any bases, but he said they're getting ready. They're getting ready for something. Next. And this was taken also in Virginia. They logged canoes at rest. Just a very, very sweet pastoral image, I think, anyway. Those clouds would have been his addition. And that would have probably been his dime that he put down on the easel. Next. And this is interesting. This one made Bodine had the first solo American photography exhibition in Russia or in the Soviet Union. It was put together by actually somebody that had gone to St. Paul's and considered he was a fellow alumna. Anyway, this was on the cover of Pravda newspaper, which is the truth. That was the Communist Party organ. Daily organ was the was Pravda, and this was the picture that they had, of the workers. They were big on that theme. Next. And this was a picture that was of him, and this was his last shoot before he died. And that is the end of the slideshow. So, questions, comments?
I have a question. Maybe you know the answer to this. So most of the images we've seen have been taken obviously by natural light. What do you know about his use of artificial lighting?
He used a flash gun. He was not big. He was much more of a fan of natural light than he was of any artificial light. He did not have everything that he needed to take pictures. He kept in the trunk of his car. So no big lights, no screens, no nothing.
He did use light, and when he took night shots to light up different areas of the image. There's an article on the Audrey Bodine digitalarchive.com website that appeared in Camera magazine, and where it was called The Camera, but it was a magazine. And he did an article about solving the problems of night photography, and he mentions using flash to light up different sections of the image that he was going to be taking at night.
I thought
mean,
it
even
was a
in
wonderful, I thought it
Pardon?
was a wonderful presentation, and your comments were terrific.
Oh, thank you.
Jennifer, I have a question.
Sure.
The Cubs archives indicate that your father was a longtime member and officer of the Baltimore Camera Club. Do you have any recollection of that?
Oh, yeah. He was the Baltimore Camera Club was a huge part of his history. This was the first club that he joined. He was a very active member. almost until until his death. Um, he, yeah, he wasn't a charter member because that you guys got started, I think, in something like 1863 or something. I mean, it was
I
back
think
in
it's
the
1884, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was way before he was born, but yeah, he felt that his exposure to amateur photographers, he learned more from the amateurs, which would have been the Baltimore Camera Club. That would have been the place he would have gone to with regularity, than he ever got from the professionals.
You know, he gave them a lot of credit
Yeah.
for improving his art.
Because whenever he went on a shoot, it was a big deal to him that he would come home with a salon quality photograph, something that he could send out on national, international exhibitions.
You know, and I think from reading stories and from hearing from people who were contemporaries of him, it sounds like they really loved having a lot of competition amongst each other, especially every
Yeah.
week.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were competitions, and um, so do you so did you I guess my question is, do you have some funny or happy memories about being with your father, A. Aubrey Bodine, that you want to tell us? I know you were telling us all about the ants running up your legs and whatever.
Yeah. That's,
But
that's kind of, I mean, we went out to a convention one time. It was a PSA convention. It was NPPA. I think it was the NPPA convention, National Press Photographers. Anyway, we were in Minneapolis, and after we got done with the done with the conference, we went fishing, which I thought was cool. I'd never gone fishing before. And so we're on this boat, and I have this fish, and it's on the end of the line. We caught a lot of fish, which we gave to the boat owner. Anyway, so the fish swings out and it hits me on the back and throws me into the lake. So, it was more of those kind of pratfall things that happened. Yeah.
so life was not a routine for you.
It never was. He was gone a lot. I mean, the first 12 years of my life, I mean, he would go away for, days at a time. This is before we had good roads. When he went to Western Maryland or he came to the Eastern Shore, he was gone for 2 or 3 days, at a toss. And then he had sinus surgery, and mother said he never was physically the same after that. And that was in 1960. So the last 10 years of his life were very much of a physical struggle for him.
So
not
did
letting
you
it-
just
Hmm?
sorry. So did you or your daughter, Bodine, I think, who is on this call, did you guys ever get the bug to take a photo or anything
Not
artistic?
me. Not
No?
me. Bodine is married to a videographer. So,
Ah.
and her father-in-law is very much of a photographer. So, she's kind of fallen into the vibe of taking pictures. No, I'm more on writing. I'm on the writing side of things. I was telling the folks earlier that I went to Europe for 2.5 months and came back with a fistful of film from my Instamatic, and my mother was laughing when she handed me the pictures and saying, "I didn't know who your father was. I questioned your paternity." So, so much
Well,
for
you're
my
always
sins.
welcome. You're always welcome to come back to the club whenever you like, and
Well,
we
thank
can
you.
give you a link if you want to come to virtual meetings. So, anyways, Ola, did you want to ask a question?
And I just found it. Well, I actually, did you ever develop a good relationship with your father as you were growing up beyond year 12?
Yes. When my parents' marriage was almost blew up, we bonded over that. He grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and how we are raised is pretty much how we raise our children, and that he left home at 4. He quit school at 14. It sort of says it all. And became financially independent of them. It was more of That's a hard one to answer. I mean, he was a difficult personality, and he had a boatload of medical issues that really impeded his ability to be much fun to be with. You know, when it wasn't strictly photography, he was a one-horse pony. I mean, photography was it. I mean, it was it. And if I had been interested in photography, I think we would have had a relationship. But, you know, I wasn't. I mean, I'm still not.
Jennifer, as a
Yeah.
follow-up to that question, towards the end of his life, did he express a sense of satisfaction with his career and his body of work?
He never said, he never talked about feelings.
Mm,
He never talked about what was on his mind. Um, and that, well, that was also, yes, a generational thing as well. But
yeah.
my mother was far more forthcoming about her life. I mean, one time I guess I was in college, and I'd come home. It was like he had insomnia, and he was up and down all night. And it was like 3 a.m, and I'm awake and he's awake. And so, well, tell me about your first wife. And he said, we got married. Well, I knew that part. What? Let's have some more here. And he said, she was 24 and I was 25. That's all I got out of him. Okay, so we'll try parents. Tell me about your parents. Now, this man may as well have been raised by wolves for all you would ever know about his family. And I said, well, tell me about your parents. And he said, my mother brushed her hair 100 strokes a night, and my father's entire name was Joel Good Bodine, and he got up and left the room.
Oh,
That was as far as we got. So he wasn't open about his feelings or his thoughts or his life. And I mean, I'm an open book. I mean, just tear the pages out of me.
Did he have friends? Close
He
friends?
did. The Sun Papers was his family. I mean, he
Mm,
went there at 14 and he was there when he was 70.
that's really
And
interesting.
they were the family. They were the family. He was tight with H.L. Mencken. And I
Yeah.
can remember as a little kid, he would go down to see Henry. It was like on a Tuesday night. I mean, I had no idea who Mencken was or any of that. And I've since become involved with the Mencken people. Not currently, but anyway, with the Mencken house and so forth, and trying to bring that back and save it from being a crack den. Because it's Union Square is a tough neighborhood. It's a tough neighborhood. Anyway, he would go down. He'd go down Tuesday nights to see Henry, and I put it together. It must have been, because my father was was a handful of people saw Mencken after Mencken had a stroke in 48 or 49, and he couldn't read or write. I mean, but otherwise his brain worked. So friends, colleagues would come down and read to him and talk to him. And, I guess Tuesday night was my father's night. But yeah, he was tight with him, and the people that he worked with, they loved him. I mean, he was so weird in his own way. Ralph Reppert, a reporter I'd mentioned earlier, that threw the bucket of water on the guy, on the sea captain. When Reppert had a son who was about my age. And so Pete was his name. So Pete and I were, like 6 and 5 or 7 and 6. And we're out on a shoot, I guess around Hagerstown in Western Maryland, the kind of part of the world. So we're out there, and Bodine was a man of pet hates, and he hated Gulf oil. And they were on E. And so Reppert says, Audrey, you got to get gas. I'm not going to Gulf. Okay, we're going to run out of gas. And well, they ran out of gas. Well, when you run out of gas and you've got you've got a 6 and a 7-year-old in the back seat who are going to have to pee, going to need something to drink, are going to be hungry, and we're out of gas out in the middle of nowhere. So Reppert said, this is your fault. You're going to go get the gas. I'll stay with the kids. So, that was, but anyway, Reppert loved him. Well, Pete, the son, Reppert took Pete out on more things than my father took me out on. And so Reppert says to his son, Pete, which photographer would you like to travel with? He said, the one that cusses a lot. Wait, guess who that was? There was only one that fell into that category. And you know, when the kid was quoted actually in the biography, to know Mr. Bodine is to love him. Yeah, I guess.
Sounds like a
So-
complicated man.
Oh
So you
yeah.
know what? I think that you said that you did that Bodine didn't have any darkroom at home, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I have logbooks that have him like the Baltimore Camera Club used to have dark rooms when we were at what is now the Maryland Science Center. It used to be the Maryland Science Academy. And we
Okay.
had 18 dark rooms that
Wow.
Baltimore Camera Club members could sign up for. And so
Wow.
I think he probably developed some of his photos with the Baltimore Camera Club versus in our dark rooms versus at
I'd kind of be surprised at that, simply because of the chemicals that, I mean, he was very, to my way of thinking, very indiscriminate about his use of his chemicals. I mean, in our bathroom closet, this is where, you know, us civilians use the bathroom. I mean, we had the brown jars with the yellow labels with the skulls and the crossbones. You don't put that in the family bathroom closet. I mean, come on already.
But you mentioned earlier washing prints in the bathtub and hanging them
Yep.
up to dry in the hallway. If he didn't have a darkroom at home,
He brought them in.
he brought them from work because he
Yep.
wasn't finished and he wanted to just wash them at home.
You know,
Cool.
all I know is that
These were exhibition prints and he would wash them additionally.
Ah,
They would survive longer.
yeah, that makes
Most of the
sense.
Photographs were just just to get to the press room and then he was done with them. But for the exhibitions, he wanted them to be processed more completely, so he would wash them in additional time.
and
That
I
makes
understand
sense.
he put wax on them. He used
Sure.
Johnson's wax. I'm just repeating. I have
awesome.
no firsthand knowledge of that.
How often was he exhibiting?
Oh my God. I have probably 800 exhibition catalogs. And their exhibiting was not going on for several years during the war. You know, that because the silver had to be used for more important things than taking photographs. And I have correspondence of him griping about that.
So the war effort had the
Oh yeah. Yeah.
first.
Yeah, the war on several levels was very inconvenient for him.
So the other interesting thing is the Baltimore Camera Club would put on international exhibits, international salons on their own and in concert with the Photographic Society of America. I think back then earlier it was called AUCC or something like that. And Aubrey Bodine was I would see his name listed on the organizers of it. So he was really involved in that. And one
Yeah.
of the exhibits that exhibitions that I saw, you mentioned about the one about he was the first non-Russian or whatever to go to the USSR to exhibit. Well, there was also an exchange that people from
Yes.
Russia came to the Baltimore Camera Club.
The guy that it was an exchange. There was like, the guy that he was exchanging with died. There was some weird thing, totally unrelated to everything, but it was going to be Bodine over there. This guy, I want to say Shalishkashvili over there, over here, but he didn't make it over here because he died. I think that was.
And that's why they turned it into a competition, because I think I have the catalog for that.
I don't know.
I'll have to go and look. I remember seeing something about it.
Yeah, I
If you
wanna
want,
get
I can take some photos and email them to you
Oh,
and
I would
things like
love
that
that.
whenever I come across it.
Yeah, I would
But
love
Jennifer,
that. I would love that.
where did he exhibit?
He exhibited all over the world.
Oh,
He would, he was on mailing lists and he'd get a card and he would, a significant part of my life was going to the downtown Baltimore post office with my mother, and we'd be in the national line and then we'd be in the international line for shipping pictures.
Mm.
I mean, you could only, the photographic, the PSA rules were you only, 4 prints, that's it, that's all you could send. so as to not be overwhelmed with prints. And he'd put them together and off they'd go.
16 by 20.
So these were 16 by 20s. And one of his gripes was that they were being limited to 16 by 20 because you needed a really serious darkroom to be able to process a 16 by 20, which virtually eliminates amateurs. And he felt that amateurs were very important to be brought into the tent of photography. More pictures, the more people take pictures, the more people will take pictures. And he was also very big on trying to get the exhibitions into museums. And there was a tug of war with the Baltimore Museum of Art, Baltimore BMA, and because the club had done exhibiting there, and then they threw them out, and then they got angry about that, and there was a bunch of back and forth. This would have been back in I think in the 50s. I've got a pile of correspondence on this.
But in terms of where he exhibited, we've put together some salon records for particular images. I just haven't gotten it posted yet, but yeah, there were, 800 at least that he did, and he won thousands of awards. And that would be, they'd hand out stickers if you were accepted, and then you would get honorable mention, or you would win a prize, first, second, third prize, something like that. And we just have a tremendous number of those. We've scanned some of them, but not all of them.
It sounds like we need to keep going to your website for
yes,
keep
yes.
posted, subscribe. I like that. Christoph, did you send us that link, the website? Or maybe we can get that website later.
Yeah, I think I did early on, but I can do that again if people would like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mhm.
Questions? Comments?
I have to say, I was at a McFalls out on Cromwell Bridge Road the other day for dinner.
Uh-huh.
And I had this pleasure of staring at about 6 or 8 of your dad's images, maybe reproductions, most likely reproductions. A couple of them pretty huge. So I walked in and sat down and I said, these have to be Bodines. And I walked over and one of them was identified.
All right.
Yeah, so it was I said to my wife, I said, gee, Jennifer's gonna present, and I'll have to say something about sitting there having the pleasure for about 4 hours looking at those images. So
Where
Want
was
to say that you are so funny. Your comments are hilarious.
Thank you.
Keep it real. I love it. Genuine.
So I have a question. It's kind of off the wall, but I think it can tell us something about a person's nature. Was he religious?
No. Oh, well.
Would he have called himself an agnostic or an atheist? Or it just wasn't part of anything?
He did think that there was some kind of higher power probably out there.
Uh-huh.
Now, to give you, how religious was he? I never saw him go to church in my entire life, except for weddings and funerals. That's it. Now, my mother was Presbyterian. We had the Presbyterian church across the street. So she went to the Presbyterian church. It was a social thing, girlfriends and so forth, and dragged me along. So my exposure to church was Presbyterian. My father was Episcopalian. So when I was 16, he said, you have got to get yourself confirmed in the Episcopal Church by a date certain or you're grounded. Okay, that sucks. So anyway, all right. He said, and then you never have to go into another church again for the rest of your life. I said, fine. Okay, we got a deal. So I had a friend in my class. Her father was a minister of an Episcopal church. I said, Penny, I got a call and a marker here. I've got to get confirmed or I'm going to get punished. Okay. Well, my class knew that I had a kind of a screwy father. So okay, well, we'll take care of it. So I got myself confirmed. Now, before that, he said he was going to take me down to St. Paul's Church, which was it was near the library, was it St. No, was it? Oh, it was yeah, it was the St. Paul's Church. It was like on Saratoga Street. So we walked down there. I walk into the church. He takes off. I have never seen that man run in my life, and he ran that day. I thought, okay, I can leave, but I'm just going to go through this again, so I'll just get it over with. So I sat there through the church service. The man could not even go into the bloody church with me, and he's making me do this. So, that to answer your question, yeah, he did in that conversation, tell me about your wife, tell me about your first wife, tell me about your parents. I said, well, how about God? And he said, it kind of is sort of a, maybe possibly kind of a thing.
That's
But
very interesting. Thank you, because I was hoping for, more than just a yes or no, and I got it.
I don't do
It's an
just yes
interesting
or
picture
no.
of the man.
Jennifer?
I don't do just yes or no.
Jennifer, did he ever take any pictures around Relay, Maryland, since he grew up around Elkridge?
Yeah, he did. We have our database is our website is word searchable. If you pop in Relay, there was I think a train station in Relay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because he did take train pictures, not just Western Maryland Railway, although that was the bulk of my book.
Is that where the viaduct was also?
Yeah, I think so. Relay Viaduct.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thomas Viaduct.
And what is your website that has all the pictures?
AudreyBodine.com.
And Audrey Bodine Digital Archives.com.
Okay.
Archive or archives? Archive.
You know what? Can I share that? Because I have it
Oh, yeah.
open. I have it open now, and
Sure.
I'm looking at a bunch of relay pictures, so I think that would
Oh,
be
good.
fun to share. Hold on one moment. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, that's the St. Thomas Viaduct. The Thomas Viaduct.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay, so we've got 9 pictures. Relay
Okay.
Dam. No, he wouldn't have taken that one. It was before his
No.
time.
Are these
Okay.
structures still there?
Yeah, the viaduct is still there.
Hmm,
That's a hotel. That's torn down.
hmm.
Yeah, the viaduct was one of the first curved railroad bridges in the world.
You mean arched or curved?
Curved. It's curved, built with arches. The tracks. It's not a straight bridge. It's arched. It's right outside of Ellicott City. It's still there, still used by trains. B&O.
Very nice. Thank you.
I think where we get our Christmas trees is in the shadow of that viaduct.
Yep, you're absolutely right, Tom. There is a Christmas tree place there.
I was gonna say, maybe I was thinking of leading a photo shoot one of these weekends in Ellicott City, because that's where I am. So maybe we can visit that curved route. I know
Yeah.
that Ellicott City train station was the first major train station in
Yeah,
the
I think
US, because the B&O, right?
1828, I think. Yeah, B&O.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember Hurricane Agnes going out, 'cause we live not far from the viaduct. If you stop there, Christoph, stop right there.
Yeah. Oh wait, I can't because it's a.
You can do pause.
Oh, hold on one moment.
Yeah, hit the pause button and then you
Hit the
can go
pause
back
button
and
and go
forth.
back.
Oh, there's the pause button. Okay. And which one?
Go back
Viaduct.
to the viaduct. Yeah, if you go almost there, you go. If you go to the far left, the support for the bridge. Take your cursor and go down to the support. Keep going down. Yeah, right up. Go to the top of that. Right down just a little bit. there were full-size trees down just a teeny bit from that,
Hmm.
lodged there from Hurricane Agnes. That's how high the floodwaters got
Oh,
in
Oh,
the
wow.
70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
mm.
And I knew a woman who lost her children in that flood in Agnes.
Yeah, it was, yeah, there used to be a state park entrance right near there, but it never reopened after Agnes.
Mm.
Yeah, there was debris piled almost as high as where that first pour of stone stops.
God, okay, let's say that person is 5.5 feet, and you're saying that's how high the debris, the water was?
Yeah, right below where the hand is. If you move your hand down just
Whoa. So that's like 60 feet, maybe?
a good 40.
Yeah, just trying judging by the body up there, multiplying that one out. Wow. Oof.
Yeah, they're a decent ways away from the viaduct.
So Jennifer, are you still discovering new photos in the treasure trove that you have right now?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. But I'm also losing my memory, so
And we haven't gotten to the color transparencies yet.
yeah, 1,500 of those puppies to weed
Oh,
through.
wow.
Yeah, to scan in.
Transparencies, what size? Like from
The
a
5 by
medium
7,
format?
5 by
Okay.
7. Yeah, the Sun advertiser said we want our ads to be in color. So Bodine had to start doing some color shoots that he never processed, but he did shoot for the covers.
Huh.
Like so the cover of the Sun magazine. It was called. We always called it the brown section, even when it stopped being brown.
So do you have
wait,
any personal favorite images?
Yeah, the one that I showed of my mother in the window and the lamplighter, I think
Right.
is
Mhm.
exquisite. And the picture in the courtyard of the church with the lady with the umbrella,
Umbrella.
I think that's a really cool nifty
Shadow on that
picture.
made it ominous.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess I like night shots.
Mm.
Like night shots.
I want to encourage everyone to look at the website because there's so many just wonderful images. You can spend the entire day just
Oh, yeah,
rifling through
take
them.
popcorn.
Yeah. And also, Jennifer and her husband do reproductions. There are also signed original prints that
Plenty of
they
them.
sell. And all the books are for sale too. And I'm really lucky because I work at Cook Library at Towson University, and we have all of the books here. So when I found out that we were doing something with you, Jennifer, I just grabbed them all. They're sitting on my desk, and I just look at them all day long.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
they're just wonderful.
Well, let us know if there's anything that we can do as a club to help you, spread the word about Audrey Bodine because he's a part of us. So
as soon as I would love to come up and go through those boxes of your
well,
of
when
your
I get
history stuff.
organized, yeah, and I actually discovered that I'm actually on March 3rd, I'm going to go up to the Maryland Historical Society, I guess, and I discovered there's a
Maryland Center
couple.
for History and Culture.
Yes,
Those
and
schools
there's a
changed their
couple
names.
people from the Baltimore Camera Club who donated some images there. So I'm going to go see what they have. These little
Okay.
pockets of information that are just hidden all over town. It's
Yeah,
just.
I just my daughter just gave them 1,600 photographs.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, they've got the Historical Society has or Center for History and Culture. They have his negatives. When my father died, my mother gave the negatives to the Peel Museum, and the Peel Museum folded in the I think early 90s, and all the Bodine stuff went over to the Historical Society, and there it has been since.
Do they allow you to have access to it?
I did get access to see what they had of a particular, well, his first wife, they had some kind of arrangement that he would provide her pictures. Anyway, long story short, and 50 years later, the building that his ex-wife had used had a stack of photographs that had been thrown in a closet, and they were Bodines. Most of them were Bodines. There were a couple that weren't. I mean, literally a couple out of hundreds. And she brought them out to our house, and I went through them, and then we took them down. She gave them to the Peel Museum because it still existed back then. But anyway, yeah, what was the question?
Can you have access to them? I mean,
Well,
yeah.
I haven't pushed it. They have been difficult for other people to deal with. I have had people contact me wanting to license something, license
Yeah.
an image, and they were, I mean, like in tears. The society wouldn't call them back. They wouldn't do that. They were impossible to deal with.
Because they were
And,
donated by a
I
private
think
citizen.
they have probably gotten more organized since then. I mean,
Okay.
a very dear friend of mine was the president of their board, and he was very much I dated his brother when I was in high school. No, middle school. Anyway, because of him, I put the donation forward. I gave them to my daughter, and she gave them to the museum. That's how that worked. But with this crew, maybe I could, because of my direct donation, our family donation, I may be able to have access to them. I'm sure I could look at them there. I mean,
Yeah. I
was,
just wanted to, I wasn't meaning to put you on the spot. I just wanted to, because he is a national treasure, he's Baltimore treasure, but national
Yeah.
treasure. I just wanted to make sure that he was being accessible to all. That's all.
Well,
And
Jennifer,
thank you
yeah,
for putting it.
do you
this is-
have authority? Do you have authority to license the images, or who does?
Yeah, I do. I own the copyright.
But they own the negatives. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but I'm very free with that because, a lot of photographers or a lot of artists, if they don't have absolute full credit, they don't want their stuff to be seen. I want the stuff to be seen. I want it to be out
Yeah.
there. I mean, it doesn't,
Yeah.
These pictures don't do any good for me in the closet. That's silly.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing. Thank you. And we'll
Yeah.
we'll send out a copy of this video, of this talk, and we'll let everybody know, we'll send out your website so people can have access.
Wonderful. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you.
when we can get together and go through those boxes, I'm ready anytime. You name the place, I'll be there. Any more questions?
Can I just say it was a pleasure?
Yeah, I
You're
agree.
a real firecracker.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Love
you're
it.
you're very welcome.
Thank
It's
you.
been my pleasure. I love talking about the dude.
Jennifer, let me ask you a personal question. You have a background in the law, as I do. You were a trial
Yeah.
lawyer, as I was. Where did you practice?
Denton, Eastern Shore, Caroline County and Talbot County. I tried cases for 5 years, and then I worked for a judge, and I wrote judicial opinions for 5 years. That was my favorite. I love doing that. I love doing term papers. I always just thought of the opinions as term papers. I was good. I only got reversed 3 times in 5 years.
Opinions you wrote for the judge. You
Hmm?
were the ghostwriter.
Yep.
Well, and that's why you said that it was difficult to write 150-word composition versus 20 pages.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to term papers and judicial opinions. I mean, I can go on and on and on.
So great.
All right.
Thank you.
So you'll all be hearing from me soon. I'm gonna send out just links to the Bodines, and I like I said, I encourage you all to go out, explore it, look at it. Everyone should have a Bodine in their living room.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have one myself.
And feel free to drop it, if y'all want to have any questions, email me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
jbb@audreybodine.com.
Yeah, it's on the website, so
Yeah,
that's
the
easy.
website info. I mean, there are only the two of us, so.
Oh,
It's-
Jennifer, while I have you, you gave me the presentation.
Mhm.
Can I donate that to the club and we'll have
Yes,
it?
I've told you to keep it.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so yes, please donate it to the club. Bring it out anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very
I just
welcome.
wanna say, I would like to say, Jennifer, thank you so much for this presentation.
Oh, you're
It-
very welcome.
Oh my God, it was so entertaining and obviously very informative. And then I want to say, what a gift you have given us, other photographers, people who love photography, and your dad.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm very moved by your story of living with him, working with him, being his daughter. And what you're doing to now is just really amazing and commendable and great and
Yeah.
generous.
Yeah, I feel this is what I was put here to do. And I
You
do
do
have
it well. You do
Thank
it
you.
well, Jennifer. And fun, as somebody said. Yeah, very entertaining. And thank you.
well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe we can invite you back in a couple years after you've uncovered some more
Yeah.
vintage photos.
You know where to find me.
Great.
So if there's no
Jim,
more
did I-
questions, I think everybody should, we'll reconvene at a further time, but let's find some dinner finally.
Thank you,
well,
Jennifer,
thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
inviting me.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
And good night, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
Good
coming
night.
out. I really appreciate that.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Remember, don't close your computer there.
No, I won't.
Just you can press stop and then we'll see.
Okay, and
Did you get anything that pops up?
yeah, it says if yes, you will receive an email notification when the cloud recording is